Hello, hello, hello. It's Holly Rustick here with Grant Writing and Funding. I'm really excited today to bring a special guest to our show, a nonprofit founder and executive director, and that's Shilpa Alva of Surge for Water. Really excited to be talking about your nonprofit, how your nonprofit has been able to continue to get funding in 2025, and all of the things going on in the world today. You are doing so many good things with helping just all the areas with access to water and all of the things. So I'm really excited you're here. Welcome, Shilpa.
Thank
Shilpa.
you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So I know we're in different time zones right now, and you said, "Oh, I'm going to be traveling soon too," and all the things. And I
Yeah.
know your nonprofit has really grown, but can you just let the listeners or the viewers know? Yes, we're on YouTube, y'all. Let them know if about this nonprofit, Surge for Water. I was doing some research on it in my bed last night, scrolling on it, and I was like, "This is such a cool nonprofit. I'm really excited about it." As I mentioned, I've worked overseas as well, where we've helped just in partnerships with access to clean water and projects in that way, just smaller projects, not like yours. But I would love to hear more about your nonprofit, Search for Water.
Yes, thanks for this opportunity, Holly. So, yes, Surge for Water, we're a woman-founded, woman-led organization that provides comprehensive water plus solutions. And the reason we call it Water Plus is because we start with water and we go beyond. So our work includes safe water solutions like wells and rainwater harvesting, solar systems, things like that, anything to provide access and purification. But then we go beyond that to comprehensive work that includes sanitation, so toilets and schools and healthcare facilities. We do hygiene, which provides education how to produce soap, something that basic and essential, or training around critical hygiene practices. And then the last pillar of our work is menstrual health, where we work with young adolescent girls and we educate them on the changes in their body, confidence and breaking down stigma and taboos, and also ensuring that they have the resources and the tools to have, basically practice experience their menstruation, I would say, with dignity and be able to continue to go to school. So that's what we do. I think the uniqueness of us is how we do it and where we do it. Our approach is very centered on women's voices and their leadership. So woman-led and woman-centered is a very strong part of our model. The other key part of our model is community ownership. So it's not just communities leading. How do they own their solutions? We have a lot of thoughtful processes that ensure that that happens. And we currently work in Indonesia, Uganda, and Haiti, but within those countries, we're in very rural, remote communities that are self-described as forgotten lands and places where no other international NGOs are working in partnership with local leaders and local organizations to basically help those leaders achieve their vision for comprehensive water plus solutions.
I love that so much. And I love the work that you do. Just like you said, it all is together, really. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's different work that's done together. And I know ending period poverty has been a real thing, right? In Guam, there's been a big efforts because as you mentioned, even going to school, a lot of the girls we noticed, if they didn't have access to sanitary products, they just weren't going to school, right?
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
was really impacting a lot of that. So I was happy when my daughter is taking pictures and in the school bathrooms and there's a little basket, right? They have these little nonprofits that are helping raise money, and just
Yeah.
clubs helping raise money.
Yeah.
There's there's products so that you can have for menstruation products in the bathrooms for free. Right? And I've seen even I remember, what was it? I was at the airport in Chicago, I think, or Disneyland, I think, somewhere. I don't know where I was in the States. But
Those strap-ons in the bathroom. Yeah.
in the bathroom. And I was I remember, I'm a Gen X kid. I remember when I lived in the States, it was the quarter you have to drop
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah. People don't have that anymore. No one's carrying around quarters.
no carrying around quarters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was I really love that you're doing that work too. And that's so important, to help with education and just what's going on with your body, because it's not
Yeah.
talked about a lot. So, so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
And many of the girls, in the places we work in, don't have that access to products. So part of that program is educating on how to make their own reusable sanitary products. And
Yes.
then some of them who are enterprising even start making them for sale. And there's all these cool things that have happened from that. But yeah, they learn how to make their own pads as well.
Right. And then I mean, not to get in the weeds of this or anything, but I know when I was in Indonesia back in 2005, and I remember we had brought a lot of my friend that I was working with, she had actually had a company send her a bunch of diva cups, right? But this is before it was mainstream. It was in an area that it was more conservative, right? A Muslim conservative area.
Yeah,
And they just
especially in Aceh.
didn't. Yes, yeah, Nache. And they, the Diva Cups were like, no, we'll do pads. But you know what I mean? There's also like cultural things or just, comfort, if it's mainstream, if it's normalized, like all of that with the different types of products. So do you feel like the ones that they're creating are more, you know what I mean? Like what they're comfortable with? Does
Yes,
that
the
make
ones they're
sense?
creating, they're comfortable. Yes, they are because we've met them where they're at. And interestingly, it's still a thing. We just every few years we introduce cups, but we do it in a very careful way. Like we do it to the midwives, we do it to the first the trainers and the educators need to use it, and only if they're comfortable. Like
Yeah.
then it starts moving. But it actually, interestingly, in the place where I work in Indonesia, it didn't go further than the community leaders were like, yeah, we don't want this product. So you're like, we don't force it because they're just still not used to it. But in Uganda, it's been received really well in the community way, but it really just depends. And we just you go slow and you see what's applicable. And you know what? You need water to wash it. So you gotta be careful too, like in these environments, like what you bring in, and a cup not being clean is way more detrimental than a pad not being clean. Both should be clean, but one can cause even more infections. So yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
interesting, right? So
definitely.
it's like working with that.
Yeah.
And I always was like, okay, yeah, I don't think that's going to work here. It's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
no, it's like a great idea. It's kind of that westernization approach to
Yeah.
like going into places. But I love that you're doing it the opposite, where you're working with the leaders and you're working with the
Yeah.
community and finding out even okay, so we can get off the topic period for a second, y'all. We can talk about like the water pump we had worked with an Australian nonprofit to come in and put in. And I know like even that was like there has to be a system. You have to pump it so many times every day. Like, you know what I mean? There has to be a lot
Yeah.
of education.
Maintenance.
And if that's even going to be something, they also did compostable toilets. And I know those
Mm-hmm.
didn't, right? So it was like the same thing.
Yeah.
Like there's education though to stay, or like how to take care of these things, or if that's even really wanted, right? So I love that you're working with the local leaders, because I've seen a lot of flaws when folks
Yeah.
go out into areas and then it's like great ideas, great intentions, but not applicable or not long, just not
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah. Don't sustain over time. Exactly. Because it just wasn't the right solution.
Right. So how do you feel like, is it just working with the local leaders that really helps then? Like you find out for them what's really needed? Like, can you talk about that process a little
Yeah.
bit? 'Cause I
So
think
we
that's overlooked. Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't have like we're product agnostic, right? Like when I say we do water, sanitation, hygiene, and menstrual health, there's so many versions of that can be implemented. And so it really depends on what the need is in that community. And then we go even further. So there's multiple aspects, right? Like one is, okay, really like what's around there? What are they used to? It's not like we're not bringing innovations to innovative stuff, but even if we are, can it be maintained? Where are the local parts coming for? Like, sorry, where are the parts coming from? Are they locally sourced? Can they get replacement? Do they have the engineering knowledge? Like, now we're building solar production wells. Like, who's going to maintain that? Like, how do so there's all these different like angles of it. And yeah, the crux of all of it is the community partners that we work with and what's their capabilities. And then the training of like every water source has a water service committee, a water sanitation committee that is responsible for the upkeep. And part of our programming is that we provide trainings and repeat trainings to those groups. And then we also have a monitoring program that helps monitor projects well way beyond when they were implemented. So we're not dropping into like an area and leaving because we're working with local partners. They're from there, so they're deeply integrated. And then we also work in every level with the government. So we're working like with the departments of health, the departments of education, just like the district water offices, who actually it's their solutions. These are usually government schools, usually government hospitals. So at the end of everything, you're handing it over to them. So they're involved every step of the way, from what's the solution that we're bringing in, the implementation, there's co-ownership and cost sharing. And then there's the final like handover. It's a very formal, like in Indonesia, there's a beautiful ceremony and, papers are stamped, things are signed, like things like that are happening. And that formality is important because it's how they would signify a significant like exchange. and we respect those processes. And I think everything together is what helps with that long term. And then even after that, we're continuing to monitor, right, and provide that support through the local teams.
I mean, that's so good. I'm so glad you're doing that. That's a lot of work to do as well.
Yes,
Like, let's
it's
be
yes,
real.
yes, yeah,
Like,
and yeah, cost, work, and yeah, the resources, right? Yeah.
and I think moreover, what I'm hearing from this, and this is what we're hearing about grants, we're going to segue into that a little bit too, is on trust.
Yeah.
Right? It's trust. It's building relationships. And that takes time to build relationships, especially when you're going to other communities, other cultures. They have, other processes. And you're going into multiple places. It's not like you're just learning how this one area operates with their laws and like their like that whole thing, the bureaucracy, right? That's a whole layer of itself. But then building relationships and building trust within that. So and I feel like as we're kind of going to segue into the grants, like as you mentioned in the green room, so y'all, you get to hear, you guys are primarily like foundation grants, right? So you haven't tapped into federal grants yet. You're tapping into foundation grants. And with foundation grants, a lot of that is building relationships. So it sounds like that's almost like the work that you're really in as well, is building relationships.
Yeah, on both sides, with the funders and with the communities.
So can we talk about that a little bit? How much is it to run this program, right? Like you guys are working in multiple countries. Like what's your annual operating budget? How have you been able to cover those costs? Like on a very pragmatic side, like what does that look like for you all?
So this year, our operating budget is 1.7 million, and very excited because this year's budget, I think, is more than what it was 2 years ago. So we have doubled in size, assuming we hit our budget. So putting good energy on that. Yes, we're looking at growth this year. And yeah, so within that, just like, from an expense standpoint, just like every other org, we got money that goes to programs, the cost of fundraising, and then the cost of, just the management and admin. And we are a very lean team. So we do a lot of our stuff in-house. And we hire consultants, and like, we were talking earlier in the green room as well about, in the future, like I could see us like working with a freelance grant writer, right? Because as we grow, we would need that resource. But right now, as of March of this year, there were 3 of us who are full-time, but prior to that, there were 2 of us, right? And the third person is entirely dedicated to the program side of it and managing those programs because they've gotten more complex as with our growth. But the 2 of us are focused on the marketing, the fundraising, the financial management, like all the other things, the operations that run this organization. And then we're also supported by, contractors and things like that. So that's sort of the high level. And then when you asked about funding, from that budget, about 40% last year came from what we call grants and foundations. So that was the mix. And that's significant increase. So that was a big drive towards our growth as well. So we've been doing well in this space, which has driven some of that growth that I've been talking about.
Okay, so you get, and that is a very lean team for 1.7 million budget for 3 full-time. Like that is a lean team. And as you mentioned, you have contractors too. But okay, so 40% was this year of annual operating budget from grants, right? What about prior to that? And you said now that's really driven the growth of the organization, but where does the other 60% come from?
Yeah, it's actually, and this is just like last year because we've had quite a change in the last few years. So just last year, like 40% was grants and like 30% was individuals, and the other 30% was just corporate money outside of grants, right? So not through their foundations, through CSR budgets, marketing budgets, things like that. So we're like, it's very clean, 30-30-40 sort of mix. There's a little bit of an other category of like, things sold and things like that. That's very, very tiny, but it's pretty much. And we actually, Holly, like did a very intentional thing 3 to 4 years ago. I can't even remember the exact time frame, but we decided to strongly focus on corporate funding and to go after corporate money. So we are working with a corporate consultant that represents us, like, and goes out and like tries to find this corporate funding. And interestingly, a lot of that outreach led to the road of like, yes, great. We built a relationship with the people in the corporate offices, and then they were like, please meet our foundation. Now you can apply to our grant in this foundation. So, but it started with corporate outreach. We were hoping that we didn't need to go down a grants process and you're like, here you go, like we're going to support you through this marketing budget. But many of those conversations led to the foundations. And that's the door that we entered. But it's coming from the same investment.
Was there like a fear or something about applying to grants, or was there a hesitation for that, or was it just like not really in your
No,
wheelhouse?
I don't think it was that. I think it was a couple of things. I think, we applied to as many grants as we could do from a capacity perspective that aligned with us. We went, I think a lot of like EDs and small organizations go through this. First, there was a period we tried to apply to everything. And this is prior to AI, right? So you're just doing it all yourself and spending all the stuff. And then, our success rates were very low. And then we're like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And then we cleaned up and we're like, okay, it really has to make sense. We have to look at the, do the research, like past funders, past grantees, sorry, and all of those things. And we got more like selective about what we applied for. And then it started working really well. The part that changed was not like, was just that we never had access to that. Like some of this is like, you need to have an employee like vouch for you, right? You need to have an introduction. Like so many of them are invite only. And then you have to have had a person, like an example, you have to have an employee like volunteer for 1 year before you can apply. Like, so it's like figuring out these inner workings. One was you have to have the country office, so either Indonesia, Uganda, or Haiti, apply on your behalf. So even going through that process and trying to figure out how to get into the grants
Ah,
application has been, a journey. And as we've gotten those opportunities, we'll happily apply because then you have an employee vouching for you and saying, hey, I'm introducing you. That's your biggest like entry point. And that's gone really well. I have an almost 100% success rate from going down that path because we've already done all that work up front. And then we're confident, right? We know that once we get this chance, if the company is really going to give you that money, I shouldn't say
yeah.
100%. There have been a couple of rejections, but I'm not counting them because those were the completely unreasonable ones. But the ones we really thought we were going to get, we got.
And that goes back to like you said, first off, it was just you were sending too many grants that didn't make any sense
Yeah,
and you got
just like
selective.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. You had some success, but then like what's really been successful is this relationship with the corporate relationships that you've already built, it sounds like, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and I heard so many people, I mean, even in the academy and the mentorship and our programs, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, there's so many grants out there I would love to apply for, but they say you can't apply, like you can't solicit, you know what I mean? Like you said, you have to, like, doors are closed. We only have pre-selected organizations, and there's so much of that. And they're always asking, how do we get past the gatekeeper? So it sounds like you figured that out in a different type of way, with also saying, well, let's first target corporates as
Yes.
sponsors, right?
Yeah.
And then if they say no, maybe they'll introduce targeted.
Yeah.
Like,
That's pretty much
like
it.
that
Yes,
was
exactly.
so smart. It's duplicating it. You're not duplicating it. You're able to replicate it almost, or
Yeah. Yeah.
repurpose it in a way. And I think that's really
Yeah.
good for your time management as well. To be like, okay, well, we can try to get it this way, or maybe we'll get it that way, but we'll just go with this
Exactly.
one action first. Right? Is that
Yeah.
kind? Am I hitting that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think depending on the kind of grants you get, like a lot of grants, at least in the water space, is restricted money. And a lot of times when you get the money from like a corporate budget, it's unrestricted. Most nonprofits want unrestricted money, right? That's sort of like our first, obviously, our preference is that you build a relationship with a particular division, department, and it's coming out of a marketing CSR, like something like that. And of course, if companies aren't able to do that, we're also very happy to be connected to their foundations. And absolutely, like, so it just depends. I mean, we go with whatever works for that company. Yeah. And then it still has to align within there, right? And if it doesn't, so of course, there have been conversations when you get to the point where you're like, okay, this doesn't match. Like, we're not going to be able to apply from, but if it gets to the point that we're applying, then I think all parties are saying, like, yeah, we're a good match and we should be tried. And we've received several invite only through this path, which has been great because yeah, it's really, it's a really exclusive world. So you're absolutely right. Like, and there are many more that we haven't been able to target. And I will clarify that the ones we've gotten access to are corporate foundations. I think the ones that are just foundations on their own, a family, those are still much harder, right? Because there's no other way to get to them. You just have to go to the foundation. So the places we've had success with are the corporate foundations.
I love that so much. And even as you mentioned, you had hired someone even to help you strategically get, find these corporate
Yeah.
sponsors and that sort of thing. Like, what is your method? Because we also teach that corporate sponsorship, but I usually delve more into like engage the board, who their relationships are, like activating them. But it sounds like you kind of did this a different way, which is really cool. So can you kind of talk about that? Like, is it cold pitches? They're trying to get you at board meetings to do a short 5-minute presentation, or like what is the kind of like how do they even build that relationship?
Yes. So we definitely, I think it was multiple. And I will also say, I mean, this was quite stressful as a founder, right? Because when we started this, you're like, okay, you're going to have to put in an investment before you even get the return, because this takes a while to get
Right.
like decent amount of money, like from a corporate partner. Right? And so that was very stressful, I will say. But now we're past that and money is coming in. But the first year, that's hard and it takes a lot of trust. It goes back to the trust comment you made. And for us, it was a couple of things. We definitely did the low hanging fruit, like who does the board know, or, all of those contacts, who can you introduce them to, right? Like, so we went down that path and we got some introductions and that did work. That did lead to some of the money that we eventually got. The other angle was we developed a strategy of what kinds of companies, right? So like in the water space, like who are the companies that are possibly not touched or like not like, giving out money, or if they are, it's us, it's someone else plus us, right? So it was quite strategic on like narrowing down a list in the water space. Where are they going? What conferences do they show up at? And then our consultant, Peter is his name, to give him a shout out right now. He's quite persistent, and then does the classic things of like reaching out on LinkedIn and, his whole process of like the sales part, which is he tells me what he does, but I'm not part of that process. He brings me in later. So that's quite a good role that I have there. But there is a lot, right, of like how many people are you reaching out to and who's responding based on that. Obviously, I don't know those specific numbers from his side. What I can see is the success side, like how many of those actually turned into conversation. And then when a conversation happens, it's multiple things. Like I just did a presentation to an employee group yesterday, right? And that's like an initial like first engagement. Sometimes it's different. Sometimes the company gives us money and then by the end of it, they're like, present to our employees, right? Or sometimes we've been invited to speak at huge conferences at the companies, right? So like when they have, large meetings. So there's been different ways we've hosted, employees from corporate foundations at our sites, right? So but employee engagement has been a very important part for almost every corporate partner that has come in. Members of their team, their companies, staff members have served on our boards, right? So those are the opportunities that they can get
Oh, I
involved. So
love
like
that.
we present these different ways of getting involved, and then it depends on what fits for that company. And then at our size, we can be adaptable to that, right? And we're not just doing it because, okay, you need to do this for the funding. We also make sure we're very clear that it's beneficial, like to both parties, like mutually beneficial. Sorry, that's a more efficient way to say it. And that's important to us. We're not just doing things to like get the funds, I guess.
Are
Yeah.
you like analyzing like their values and does it align with yours
Yeah.
and all of the
Yes.
things, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's great. Have you ever done like employee volunteerism? Like I know you said like on the board, but like in any of the communities or no?
We have not necessarily employee volunteerism, but we have taken, because we don't do that, like that's not our model. We
Yeah.
used to back in the day, but it's shifted. We've learned a lot more since those days. So we don't do that anymore. But what we do is we have taken corporate partners to visit the sites. So they're not
Nice.
volunteering, they're just
That's coming to visit.
visiting, they're meeting local leaders, they're understanding our strategy, they're meeting our local partners. They're not doing anything, not building a well or painting a
Okay.
toilet, but they're there to see the work and to assess the work and to have those conversations with us and join us in meetings and in strategic conversations and in workshops. It's something that makes sense along those lines, but not the volunteering part of it.
Okay, it was just kind of ringing a bell. My colleague Rachel Waterman, she's been doing that, like in Brazil. She lives in Brazil and like taking people like
Yeah.
different cultures down it. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. But yeah, I would see like it would depend on what that looks like too, because that could feel intrusive as well. Or there's like all the things in certain
Different
areas.
ways, yeah.
But I like that, yeah, the ability to be a part of the movement in a way, or to if that's being on the
Yeah.
board or just hearing what's going on. And then with that, are you doing like follow-up reports? Like how do you keep the sponsors? Do they keep renewing in their sponsorship? Is it an annual sponsorship? Or do you try to set something up where it can be, ongoing?
We always try to set it up where it can be ongoing. It doesn't always work that way. We're like, so 3 years is what we're saying, right? Like we try to get that doesn't always work, but most of them have been ongoing and have been multi-year. Some of the newer ones, it's still to be decided. So it depends. So if it's a corporate partnership that's not in the grants process, then yes, we do try to like at an annual cycle, right? Like go back to them, but we do report because again, a lot of our funding is restricted. But even if it's not restricted, then we will come back and be like, here's the well you built, here's the toilets, right? Like here's the stories of impact. And so we do provide a very detailed impact report for the funding. And then from grants, you just have to follow, as you know, we'd have to follow that process. Like you have to submit your grant reports, and the goal there is to get it done in time. And some of them are like, oh, you can't apply for the next round until you're done, or we better get done so we can ask for the next round of money. So we do manage that. Like all of that is managed, where we manage those timelines and the reporting and the communication. And then even if we have a direct access to, it goes back to the relationships, right? Like even if we don't, like a lot of them, you like need to submit your final report. There's not even a midterm report for some of them, but we don't follow that. Like we still submit updates along the way. Like as soon as something's done, we try to bring people along because it goes back to that relationship. You don't want to be forgotten until at the end of the year. You're like, here you go. Like here's the project. So we as much as possible try to have midpoint check-ins that are calls, not just emails, bringing them along, sharing videos, sharing stories, sharing pictures so that they can see that like the money is being put to use as soon as and as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. I love that, keeping up and building those longer term relationships. And so we touched on the grants a bit. We touched on the corporate sponsorships a bit. The individual donors, though, that's still quite a bit, 30% like of your income. So do you have a newsletter that goes out? Because it sounds like you like to communicate what you're doing a lot, which is great. Is that something, how to keep them engaged? Like how do you get new donors? How do you retain them?
Yeah. So the larger percent of our individual donors does come in through our events. So we do have fundraising events. So our fundraising events, so if you right now, I like shared with you individuals, corporate, and grants, but that's events broken down. But events actually is also about 35-40% of our revenue. And then you take those events out, and then individuals and corporates come into those events. So we are getting funding from events, which we just finished one, and we have another one at the end of November. So like we're definitely in like heavy event mode right now. That individuals are coming through that. And then it's really beautiful. Like we've grown with our donors from like the individual perspective. So we had donors. I started this organization in 2008, and some of those donors at that time were at points in their career that maybe they were giving $25 or $50. Like these same donors are executives and own their own companies now, and they've stayed with us. Our donors have grown as we've grown. So we've seen the benefits of that. And then of course, like as you start, like we just rebranded and refreshed our like messaging, and like all of those kinds of things has now attracted another level, right? Board connection. So we are cultivating it, but I will say, because you can't with a small team focus on everything, the value or the amount, and you look at it like from just a pure like gross amount, individual donations is shrinking on our side. So that's not a good sign, because we've been focusing so much more on corporate and on grants and funds. So yeah, so we are concerned about that, but we can't do everything. So that was a strategic decision, and we are seeing the effects of that. So we're trying to keep the ones we have, but it's been quite hard to do all of them and to do all well. And so that has suffered a bit.
Yeah. And it can be, especially if, like you said, events are a huge lift. And if that's where you, so it can feel like all these other ways are easier, quote unquote.
Easier, right? Yeah. We have that conversation every year. Like we just we're like, should we cancel this? Is it worth it? Right? We just got the same amount of money in one grant. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you go through it, and like, you're not ready to walk away.
But yeah, it's good to have a balance. And I really feel like you have a healthy balance with your mix of funding. And I think that's great. But yeah, I could also think about like, what else could we do? Are there any easier events? You know what I mean? Does everything have to be like, tell me about your events. Tell me, what do you do?
Well, they're full on productions. They're crazy. Like they're full on, like they're not easy at all. Yeah, we do the full gala, and the one so we have one in Dubai at the end of November, and that one is interior. It's really a cool model actually. So that event is connected to the architecture and interior design community in the UAE, and this is I think a 12th event I want to say that we've done in this space, and every year interior design companies design a piece of furniture, lighting, or whatever on a theme. So this year's theme is Broken Beautiful. And they create the most stunning. I just saw the pictures like this morning, actually, of the pieces, and they're just stunning, like gorgeous, gorgeous pieces. And then the whole event comes around based on these creations. So we have 16 design teams this year, and then we reveal them at this gala. But the whole industry comes together because these are interior designers, and who are their, I guess, clients are the floor manufacturers, the carpet people, the furniture people. So they all want to come into the room and like basically be part of that community, because that's like a business environment for all of them. So they're the ones who sponsor the event. And then the pieces are for sale, and then everybody buys tickets, including the designers, to attend. So it's everyone's contributing, but it comes together as this beautiful architecture and design community event. And the industry has really taken us on as like their like cause. And like everyone looks forward to it, because it's like the one night where it's like competition, because they compete, right, in the daytime. Like these are all like, and then they come together for this beautiful purpose. And it's still a competition, by the way. The best piece wins, but it's for a cause, right? So it's like quite beautiful. So
And
that's the event there.
Right. You're the center cause. You're the center nonprofit.
We are the only, it's our event. Yeah, we are the only cause.
That's
everything raised goes to our work. So, and it's all connected. Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's really cool. It's such a beautiful niche. But the pieces have to be produced. Like all of it has to be just like there's a video shoot going on this weekend in Dubai, right? Like it's a whole thing. And that one is actually primarily corporate.
So, yeah, I lived in Abu Dhabi, so I know how they do things in UAE.
Yeah, and everything's grand.
Like you said, it's a production. I can only imagine. Yeah, I would love to be a fly in the wall.
Yeah, so that's done really well for us. And that one's actually predominantly corporate funding, but the US gala is more individuals and less corporate, because the US one was really friends and family and co-workers, and it's more of a party. So there's a dinner, but it's more of your like traditional, like, band, music, silent auction, like what you would normally see, but it's not the complete sit down people speaking at you. It still has a younger, like more fun, hip vibe. But and the US one, we celebrate the cultures and the that we work in. So this year's gala was Rhythms of Water, and we celebrate like the Haitian, Indonesian, and Ugandan cultures through music, dance, food, drinks, things like that.
Wow, you guys do it all out. I love it so much. Yeah, but it's a big lift, like you said.
Yeah.
Sounds like you kind of do these back to back. These are the two that you're doing right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
We just completed the US one was September 27th, and then the Dubai one is November 27th on Thanksgiving Day. So
yeah, very, very cool. Okay, so so you have your thing, you have individual donors, they come in through this way as well. And I think that's fantastic. But yeah, it is like, okay, how could we help this even more along? So like, as you mentioned, you have a contractor for helping with corporates to find and identify corporates. And you mentioned you guys do in the in-house kind of grant writing yourselves. And then it sounds like you guys do a lot for the events as well. Is that also you doing it?
We do it all in-house. It's all in-house.
So I mean, that sounds like maybe at this time, maybe consider another consultant to help you out.
Right? We might have hit our capacity a while ago.
Yeah, you can only do so much. But I absolutely love the work that you're doing. And as you mentioned, just really quick, I wanted to touch on this. You did mention, if we were to hire a grant writer, it'd be a freelancer. And I thought that was such an interesting thing, because I've seen this switch, and I've been doing this for more than 20 years, but I've seen definitely the switch from nonprofit EDs to go, that's like a first inclination. It's not let's fight, because it used to be let's hire a staff grant writer. And now it's more like let's hire a freelancer. Like what is that thought process? Because I kind of count that a little bit. It's like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like why would you go straight to freelancer?
I think the way I would see it is like that's a great way, like without a lot of risk, to test it out. Right. Yeah. And that, I mean, it was as simple as that. It was from a cost perspective. And it's not like, we still like can do a certain amount internally. So this would be for the add-on piece, right? And then slowly bring that on. So I think as we grow, of course, I can see the need of a full-time person. But initially, right, like it's a great like balance. And I know you would probably end up spending more when you go freelance versus like a full-time internal resource. I would assume. I don't know that information. But to me, it's like, it's kind of cool because, and then also there's less risk to the writer, right? Then you have other clients. I mean, honestly, that's probably going to make, as long as there's no conflict and you're not working for all water organizations or something like that, then I think that it's a win-win, right? Because then we get the benefits of knowledge that someone's learning across multiple processes. And then we also don't have that heavy cost.
Yeah.
And then you grow from there. You grow from there to like see what happens.
I absolutely love that. Yeah, because you're spot on. Like you can start off with a more flexible relationship that works for you. And I always tell freelance grant writers, I'm like, it's a win-win, right? Because
Yeah.
you can make more money as a freelancer than a staff person because you can have multiple clients. But for the nonprofit, it's actually more affordable to work with you than hiring
Yeah,
a staff.
exactly. Yeah,
So it's like
absolutely.
it's like this beautiful win-win. So because you're not doing all the other duties as necessary, right? You can just lean
Yeah.
into the expertise. You can lean into being a grant strategist. You can lean into, even if you spent 20 hours a month with your organization Search for Water, they could just be focused exclusively on finding grants for you for a Search for Water, right? For knowing about the water grants that are out there, like the whole thing, right? Like that's the beauty of it. And then you're getting someone who's just focusing on that and their attention isn't everywhere else, right? So even if they're a staff grant writer, they're going to be doing other things. You're going to be pulling
Yeah,
them in.
yeah. And for an org our size, absolutely. Yeah, you can't be like writing grants only when we have events.
Exactly, exactly. I love that your brain kind of went there and that more nonprofits, hopefully in these days, are like, because they're streamlining their budgets. They're trying to figure out what to do, and staff grant writers might not be on deck for them, but the need to kind of offload some of this so they can focus on their events or whatnot is helpful, right? To get that freelancer. So yeah, I just wanted to tune into that for a second because I liked how in the past I've always heard, oh, I'm going to hire a grant writer. You know what I mean? Like that's our first initial.
Yeah.
Yes, we making progress.
And I will say, Holly, this conversation is definitely might be reaching out to you offline to be like, what does this cost? Like, how do we do this? Because I do think our fiscal year ends in March. So maybe something we can put into next year's fiscal year. Because if you don't invest, I mean, we learned that through the corporate consultant, you need to invest and you've got to take chances in order to be able to grow. Obviously, we need to have the money to do that. But I think this is like also a really beautifully timed conversation because we are at that size of other, it is time to be looking at that and at least looking. I don't even know what it costs, right? Like to do something like that. So it's like, it is really important to like, can we afford this? And if not, how do we figure out how to do it? And what part in our journey does that like role come in? Because it's limiting our growth and the potential that we have because we're not investing. So should be one of the next steps.
Oh yeah, you could absolutely find it where it could meet your budget. Absolutely. And you can go to our grant writer directory where we vet our grant writers. Yeah.
No, I love that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, because we have, as I mentioned, I think I was telling you before, like, because you're like, oh, what would that look like? And I said, well, yeah, we have any grant writer and our grant writing directory, they have to have submitted at least 4 grants. They have or 4 grants and submitted 1 for us to review. So we vet them before they're even on our site, and then they have to say like what cause area they write grants for, foundation grant, federal grant, state grants. I'm right all for all of them, but they can be very specific if they're in a certain geographic area, like all of that. So we have like, I don't know, probably 100 grant writers on our directory, but you can streamline it by having that search index. And we've updated
we
that.
Will be doing that. We'll be doing that.
Okay, what would that look like? So definitely, yeah, check that out. I love that. That's helpful because you found how helpful that corporate consultant is for you, right?
Yeah,
how much time
and just skills that I don't have and we don't have internally, right? Skills and time. So it's great, right? Like, I can't do the process that he has and he does it brilliantly because that's like his skill set. So like same thing. We've had success by doing grants for sale, but what if you actually had a grant writer? We've never had that. Like what would that do? Like
right? And then you could focus. Yeah. So good. I love this conversation with you so much, Shilpa.
Me too.
Yeah. I don't often get nonprofit EDs on the show, so I was really excited to there. I'd love to hear the perspective. And all the grant writers out there, I hope that you're also hearing this different perspective from the inside of what people are doing these days. But this has also been really inspiring just to hear how your nonprofit's growing in 2025 for all of the work that you're doing. And where can they find you? Where can they get more involved, see what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so our organization's on all the social channels. It's Search for Water or our website, just searchforwater.org. And then you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. It's probably the best space under my name. So yeah, I'd love to connect and get to know us. And yeah, we're doing some great work and we need everyone's help to keep achieving the mission. So open to collaborations.
Amazing. And any last words that you have for our community before we sign off today?
I just want to thank you, Holly, for creating this space. I think it's wonderful. When we started in the green room, I was like, yeah, you're creating the funding is coming, right? Like organizations like us need the funds, and you've created that space to generate those funds. And I think what's important when you do this kind of work is that it's so complex and that the issues are so large, and you're talking about the global water crisis, that you need everybody to sort of play their role, and then together, right, like we can achieve great things. And I think that's what I want to say, that it's cool to be part of a larger community where everyone does their part.
Yes, yeah, we're really excited. We're on a mission right now to get to $1 billion in grants by 2030. So we've
Amazing.
already over $250 million that our students have secured for organizations like yours. So
It's
really
amazing.
excited. I'm really excited at the work that you're doing. This is how we can do our part to support the beautiful work that you guys are doing to actually change the world and make it better. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Yes. All right, Shilpa. Well, I will hopefully see you again soon, and have a wonderful
Yes.
evening. Thank you for coming
You
on.
too. Have a wonderful day.